There are 8 laws no one has ever taught you and no one will ever teach you. 8 principles buried beneath centuries of polite philosophy and civilized lies. They were not written for the weak. They were not designed for comfort. They exist in the shadows where power is born and where the fragile collapse. You are about to enter a domain most will never see. The question is not whether you will learn them. The question is whether you are already too soft to use them. If you want to discover what the history books edited out, what the self-help gurus are too afraid to say, then subscribe now. Because what comes next is not for the algorithm. It is for you. The one still watching. The one who senses there is more. Most people walk through life as passengers. They react. They flinch. They depend on the mood of the room to tell them how to feel. But there is another way. A colder way. A way that turns chaos into clarity and makes your mind a fortress no one can breach. This is not about aggression. It is about inevitability. Machiavelli understood something the modern world desperately tries to forget. That the appearance of virtue can be more valuable than virtue itself. That emotion, left unchecked, is a predator. And that the mentally unstoppable do not seek approval. They architect outcomes. The castle stands on a hill. Inside, a prince sleeps soundly. Outside, his enemies gather, whispering, scheming, waiting for a crack in the stone. They do not bring armies. Not yet. They bring rumors. Doubts. They plant seeds in the minds of his allies. They watch his reactions. They test his patience. One of his advisors suggests mercy. Another suggests rage. The prince says nothing. Days pass. The enemies grow bolder. They send a messenger with an insult wrapped in diplomacy. The court holds its breath. What will he do? The prince receives the messenger, offers him wine, thanks him for his honesty. Then, quietly, without announcement, he moves 3 pieces on the board no one else was watching. A trade route closed. A marriage arrangement finalized. A rival's creditor suddenly paid in full, but with a condition. 2 weeks later, the enemies fracture from within. No blood. No spectacle. Just inevitability. The prince never raised his voice. That is the first truth. The unstoppable do not react. They respond. And response requires something most people have never built. A mind that does not bend when the wind blows. You are still here. Good. That means something. Comment below what you think happened in that castle. What did the prince understand that his enemies did not? Let us see who among you thinks like power. Law 1. Never let them see you break. There is a difference between feeling and showing. The world will test you. It will poke at your pride, your fear, your anger. It wants to see you crack. Because once you break, you become predictable. And the predictable are controlled. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must be a lion and a fox. The lion fights wolves. But the fox recognizes traps. Your emotions are the trap. The moment you let them spill into the open, you hand your enemies a map to your interior. They learn what hurts you, what excites you, what makes you irrational. This is not about suppressing your humanity. It is about ruling it. The mentally unstoppable feel everything, but they reveal only what serves them. When Caesar was captured by pirates, they mocked him, set a low ransom. He laughed and told them they undervalued him. He raised his own ransom. The pirates thought him arrogant, amusing. He joked with them, recited poetry, joined their games, and then promised with a smile that he would crucify them all. They laughed again. He was released. He raised a fleet, returned, captured every single one, and had them crucified, exactly as promised. He never broke. Not in captivity, not in revenge. He turned humiliation into theater, then into legend. That is the law. Your composure is your currency. Spend it on nothing. Ask yourself this. When was the last time someone saw you lose control? What did it cost you? Did they respect you more, or did you just become easier to manage? Most people leak emotion like a broken pipe. They cry for sympathy. They rage for attention. They celebrate for validation. Every leak is a loss of power. The unstoppable seal the pipe. They choose the moment, the audience, the dose. If you are beginning to realize how much you have been giving away for free, do not close this video. Subscribe, because each law builds on the last. And by the end, you will not recognize the person you were when you started. There is a woman in a boardroom. Her competitor just took credit for her idea. Everyone knows it. She knows they know. The room waits for her reaction. She smiles, nods, says nothing. The meeting ends. 3 days later, she is in a one-on-one with the executive. She does not mention the theft. She presents a new idea. Bigger, bolder. It gets approved. Her name is on it. Meanwhile, her competitor is now tied to the first idea, which quietly begins to fail because she never gave him the second half of the strategy. He looks incompetent. She looks indispensable. She never broke. She never complained. She architected. This is the invisible war. The one happening behind every smile, every silence, every controlled breath. People think power is loud. It is not. Power is the absence of reaction in the presence of provocation. Write in the comments the last time you stayed silent when you wanted to explode. Tell me what happened next. And if you have never done it, admit that too. Honesty is the first step to domination. Law 2. Starve your need for approval. You were conditioned to seek permission. From parents. From teachers. From peers. You learned that acceptance equals safety. But safety is not power. The need for approval is a leash. And whoever holds it owns you. Machiavelli knew that a prince loved by all is trusted by none. Because love is fickle. It shifts with mood and circumstance. But respect, especially respect born of boundary and distance, endures. The mentally unstoppable do not ask if they are liked. They ask if they are effective. If they are advancing. If they are free. Consider the actor who chases every role, every audition, every nod from a casting director. Now consider the actor who disappears for 3 years, then returns with a project they wrote, financed, and starred in. Who has the power? The first is a servant to opinion. The second is a creator of reality. One waits to be chosen. The other chooses. Your need for approval is a vote you give to someone else about your worth. Take the vote back. Here is the trap. Social media has weaponized your hunger for validation. Every like is a pellet in a Skinner box. Every comment a potential threat or reward. You post and wait. You refresh and hope. You shape your words, your image, your thoughts around what will be accepted. You are not living. You are auditioning. And the mentally unstoppable do not audition. They perform when they choose. For audiences they select. On stages they build. Ask yourself, how much of what you did today was for you? And how much was for the invisible audience in your head? If the answer makes you uncomfortable, you are in the right place. Stay with me. When Marcus Aurelius wrote his Meditations, he was not writing for publication. He was writing to himself. He did not care if future generations would read it. He cared only about his own clarity. That is freedom. The freedom to think without performance. To act without applause. To fail without humiliation. Because humiliation only exists when you need the crowd to tell you who you are. If this is starting to cut deep, good. Subscribe now. Because discomfort is the price of evolution. And I am not here to make you comfortable. I am here to make you unstoppable. There was a philosopher who refused to debate in public forums. Students came from distant cities to hear him speak. He turned them away. They offered money. He refused. They grew angry, insulted him, called him a coward. He smiled and continued his walk. One student followed him in silence for 3 days. On the 3rd day, the philosopher stopped and said, "You are the first one who did not need me to perform. You wanted to learn, not to watch. Now I will teach you." The others wanted a show. You wanted truth. That student became legendary. The others became crowds. What do you want? Performance or truth? applause, or power? Comment below. Let me know if you have ever walked away from approval because something deeper called you. Law 3. Control the frame or be framed. Every conversation is a battlefield. Not of words, but of frame. The frame is the invisible border that defines what is reasonable, what is possible, what is true. Whoever controls the frame controls the outcome. You can have all the logic in the world, but if you are arguing inside someone else's frame, you have already lost. Machiavelli understood that perception is stronger than fact. The prince who appears strong is strong. The prince who appears weak is devoured, even if he hides an army. Watch a master negotiator. They do not answer the question you ask. They reframe it. You say, "Why is this so expensive?" They say, "Why do you think most people cannot afford to think long-term?" You are now defending your mindset, not questioning their price. You entered their frame. The battle was over before it began. Here is the test. When someone insults you, they are trying to pull you into a frame where you are defensive, emotional, beneath them. If you defend yourself, you accept the frame. You are now playing their game. But if you reframe the insult as a compliment, a misunderstanding, or irrelevant entirely, you seize control. They are now off balance. You dictate reality. Politicians do this every day. A journalist asks, "Why did your policy fail?" The politician responds, "I think the real question is why the media refuses to cover the progress we have made." Notice, the question was never answered, but the frame shifted. Now the journalist is implied as biased. The audience forgets the original question. That is frame control. If you have ever felt like you lost an argument even though you were right, it is because you were outframed. Logic is secondary. Frame is primary. Let me ask you something. In your last conflict, who set the rules of engagement? Who decided what the argument was about? If it was not you, you lost. Comment below and tell me the moment you realized someone reframed you. Awareness is the beginning of mastery. Subscribe if you want to learn how to become the one who writes the rules, not the one who follows them. There is a CEO facing a scandal. The board is angry. The press is circling. Everyone expects an apology. She calls a press conference. The room is tense. She begins. "I want to address the allegations directly. But first, I want to talk about why this company has always been a target for those who fear disruption." She does not deny. She does not apologize. She reframes the scandal as proof of her danger to the status quo. By the end, the narrative is not about wrongdoing. It is about courage. She controlled the frame. The scandal faded. Her brand grew. You can do this in your daily life. Your boss says you are behind schedule. You say, "I prioritized quality over speed because I assumed you valued long-term reputation over short-term optics. Was I wrong?" Now your boss is defending their priorities, not attacking yours. You reframed the conversation. You are no longer the accused. You are the strategist. This is not manipulation. This is clarity. You are simply refusing to live inside someone else's definition of reality. Law 4. Become comfortable in the silence. Silence terrifies the weak. It creates space. And in that space, people project their fears, their guilt, their desperation. The mentally unstoppable know this. They do not fill the air with noise. They let silence do the work. Machiavelli rarely wrote about what a prince should say. He wrote about when a prince should say nothing. Because silence is pressure. It is a mirror. And most people cannot stand what they see. In negotiation, the first person to speak after the offer loses. Because speaking is relief. It is surrender to discomfort. But if you sit in the silence, the other person will speak. They will justify. They will sweeten the deal. They will reveal their hand. All because they could not sit with the void. There is a reason interrogators use silence. It is unbearable. Suspects confess not because of questions, but because of the space between them. The silence becomes louder than any accusation. Now apply this to your relationships, your conversations, your meetings. When you stop filling every gap with words, you will notice something. People reveal themselves. They over-explain. They assume your silence is judgment, so they defend. They tell you things they never planned to say. And you, in your quiet, gather intelligence. Have you ever noticed that the most powerful person in the room often says the least? Comment below if you have experienced this. And if you have not, start watching. You will see it everywhere. If you are learning to wield silence like a weapon, subscribe now. The next law will show you what to do with the information silence gives you. There was a general who never shouted orders. His soldiers said he spoke less in a year than most commanders did in a day. When he entered a room, conversations stopped. Not because he demanded it, but because his silence commanded more respect than any voice. When he finally spoke, every word was considered absolute. He never repeated himself. He never needed to. His silence had weight. His words had gravity. He understood that noise is cheap. Silence is expensive. And the mentally unstoppable spend their words like gold. You live in a world that is drowning in sound. Everyone is yelling for attention. Podcasts, notifications, opinions, arguments. It is a contest of volume. But volume is not power. Presence is. And presence is found in the space you hold, not the noise you make. Try this. In your next conversation, let the silence sit. Do not rush to fill it. Watch what happens. Watch them squirm. Watch them speak. Watch them give you everything. Then come back and tell me what you learned. Law 5. Make them need you, never need them. Dependency is slavery. The moment you need someone more than they need you, you have given them a blade and turned your back. Machiavelli warned that a prince should never rely on fortune or the goodwill of others. Because both are unstable. The only stable foundation is your own utility, your own value, your irreplaceability. The mentally unstoppable build themselves into assets that cannot be ignored. They make themselves necessary. And necessity is the highest form of leverage. Think about it. The employee who can be replaced is powerless. The employee who has a unique skill, a critical relationship, or institutional knowledge no one else holds, that employee has power. Not because they demand it, but because removing them creates a cost no one wants to pay. This is not about arrogance. It is about architecture. You architect your value. You diversify your skills. You build relationships across hierarchies. You make yourself a node in multiple networks, so that your absence creates a vacuum. Here is the darker side. If you make yourself needed, you must never let them forget it. Subtly, quietly, you remind them, not with words, but with results. With problems only you solve. With crises only you navigate. You become the calm in their chaos. And chaos, my friend, is everywhere. You just need to position yourself as the solution. When someone needs you, they do not betray you. They protect you. They promote you. They forgive you. Because losing you costs more than keeping you happy. Are you indispensable in any area of your life? Or could you disappear tomorrow and the machine would keep running? Comment your answer. Be honest. This is not about shame. It is about strategy. If you are realizing you have been replaceable, subscribe. Because what comes next will teach you how to become essential. There was a merchant in Renaissance Florence. He was not the wealthiest, but he controlled the salt routes. No one else had the relationships with the miners, the transport guilds, and the city officials. He made himself the only bridge between supply and demand. When rivals tried to undercut him, they discovered they had no access. When the city tried to regulate him, they realized regulation would collapse the flow of salt, and riots would follow. He was untouchable, not because of armies, because of necessity. He built a system where his removal meant collapse. That is power. You can do this in your career, in your relationships, in your creative work. Find the gap, the thing no one else is doing, the problem no one else is solving. Then own it. Become the answer. And once you are the answer, you are no longer asking for permission. You are granting access. But here is the warning. Never show how much you need them. Even if you do. Especially if you do. Because the moment they sense your dependency, the dynamic inverts. You are no longer the asset. You are the liability. Keep your needs hidden. Your value visible. Law 6. Choose your battles. Win your wars. The fool fights every fight. The master fights only the wars that matter. Energy is finite. Attention is finite. Every argument you enter, every conflict you engage, costs you something. Time. Focus. Reputation. The mentally unstoppable understand that not every insult deserves a response. Not every challenge deserves engagement. Some battles are traps designed to drain you. The wise recognize the trap and walk past it. Machiavelli observed that princes often lose their kingdoms not through single defeats, but through exhaustion. They spread themselves thin. They fight on too many fronts. They react to every provocation until they have no strength left for the wars that actually determine survival. The unstoppable are selective. Ruthlessly selective. They ignore the noise. They identify the critical path. And they pour all their force into that alone. This requires something most people lack. Ego control. Because your ego wants to fight everything. Every slight. Every dismissal. Every competition. Your ego tells you that letting something go is weakness. But the opposite is true. Letting go of the irrelevant is strength. It is clarity. It is strategy. Ask yourself, how many hours have you wasted arguing with people who do not matter? How much energy have you burned proving points that changed nothing? If you are honest, the number is staggering. Comment below the last argument you wish you had never entered. What did it cost you? And what did you gain? Let us see if the math makes sense. If you are starting to see the battles you should have walked away from, subscribe now. Because recognizing the trap is step 1. Learning to disarm it is step 2. There was a samurai known for never drawing his sword. Rivals mocked him, called him a coward, challenged him in the streets. He would bow and walk away. This continued for years. His reputation suffered. Students left him. But he did not care. He was waiting. One day, a warlord invaded his province. Chaos erupted. The samurai emerged. He fought once, ended the threat, saved the region. His single battle became legend. All the small fights he avoided were forgotten. He understood that history does not remember how many times you fought. It remembers whether you won the war that mattered. You are in a war right now. Maybe you do not see it. But your time, your energy, your mental space, these are under constant siege. Every notification is an invasion. Every drama is a skirmish. Every pointless debate is a drain on your arsenal. The unstoppable defend their borders. They say no. They ignore. They let the small enemies exhaust themselves against silence. This does not mean you are passive. It means you are precise. When you do engage, it is total. It is decisive. It is final. You do not wound. You end. Because you saved your strength for the moment that counts. Here is a practice. For the next week, before you respond to any provocation, ask yourself, will this matter in a year? If the answer is no, do not engage. Watch how much energy you reclaim. Then tell me what you did with it. Law 7. Let them think they won. Victory does not require applause. In fact, the greatest victories are invisible. The mentally unstoppable know that letting your opponent think they won is often more valuable than public triumph. Because a defeated enemy who knows they lost will seek revenge. But an enemy who thinks they won will lower their guard. They will stop watching you. And that is when you move. Machiavelli wrote extensively about the dangers of humiliating your rivals. Humiliation breeds obsession. The humiliated will sacrifice everything for vengeance. But if you allow them the illusion of victory, they celebrate. They relax. They move on. Meanwhile, you quietly take what you actually wanted. This is advanced. It requires you to abandon your need for recognition. To let someone else take the credit while you take the outcome. Most people cannot do this. Their ego demands the spotlight. But the spotlight is a target. And the mentally unstoppable prefer shadows. Think of a negotiation. You want term A and term B. You pretend term C is your priority. You fight hard for term C. They push back. You reluctantly concede term C but hold firm on A and B. They feel victorious. You got exactly what you wanted. They tell everyone how they outmaneuvered you. You do not care. Because you have the substance. They have the story. Have you ever let someone think they beat you, when in reality you got what you needed? If so, comment below. If not, you are about to start. Subscribe if this level of strategic thinking excites you. Because we are not building louder voices here. We are building sharper minds. There was a courtier in the Medici court. He wanted a specific position. But another man, favored by the Duke, wanted it too. The courtier could have fought publicly. Instead, he praised his rival. Loudly. He told the Duke that his rival was so talented, he deserved an even greater role. The Duke agreed. Promoted the rival to a more prestigious but ultimately powerless ceremonial position. The rival accepted, honored. The courtier quietly stepped into the role he actually wanted. No conflict. No resentment. His rival never even realized what happened. That is mastery. You can apply this everywhere. In relationships, let your partner think they chose the restaurant. You already picked 3 you liked and let them choose from those. In business, let your boss think the idea was theirs. You planted it 3 weeks ago in a casual conversation. They internalized it, presented it as revelation. You smile and support them. You do not care who gets credit. You care about the outcome. This is not deception. It is elegance. You are removing friction. You are letting people feel good while you engineer reality. Everyone wins. But you win more. Law 8. Build a mind that feeds on pressure. This is the final law. The one that makes all others possible. Because you can know every strategy, every tactic, every Machiavellian principle ever written. But if your mind collapses under pressure, none of it matters. The mentally unstoppable do not just endure pressure. They are sharpened by it. They have trained themselves to enter clarity when others enter panic. To see opportunity when others see catastrophe. This is not a gift. It is a discipline. Machiavelli lived through invasion, exile, torture, and political collapse. He wrote The Prince not from a position of safety, but from ruin. Pressure did not break him. It refined his vision. He saw patterns others missed because his mind was not clouded by comfort. Pressure removes illusion. It reveals what is real. And if you have built your mind correctly, reality is your advantage. Most people avoid pressure. They build lives designed to minimize discomfort. But comfort is corrosive. It makes you slow. It makes you fragile. The moment real chaos arrives, they shatter. Because they have no calluses, no tolerance, no framework for functioning in the storm. You must do the opposite. You must seek calibrated pressure. Not reckless destruction, but intentional challenge. You put yourself in situations slightly beyond your capacity. You fail. You adapt. You try again. Over time, your threshold rises. What once felt overwhelming becomes baseline. You are not born mentally unstoppable. You forge yourself into it. Tell me in the comments the hardest pressure you ever faced. Did it break you or build you? And if it broke you, are you ready to rebuild differently? If you have made it this far, you are not casual. You are serious. Subscribe now. Because the mind that feeds on pressure is not taught in schools. It is trained in margins like this one. There is a fighter pilot who describes the moment of aerial combat not as chaos, but as silence. He says time slows. Clarity arrives. He sees the angles, the speeds, the outcomes before they happen. Not because he is superhuman, but because he has been in the simulator 1,000 times. He has exposed his mind to failure so many times that real danger does not trigger panic. It triggers protocol. His mind has been conditioned. Pressure is the environment he trained for. So when it arrives, he is home. You can build this. Start small. Put yourself in conversations that scare you. Take on projects with stakes. Lift heavier. Run further. Speak in front of crowds. Fail publicly. Let the discomfort become familiar. Let your mind learn that survival is possible even when comfort is gone. Over months, over years, you will notice something. The things that used to paralyze you now energize you, because your mind has learned to metabolize pressure into focus. This is neurological. Your amygdala can be regulated. Your prefrontal cortex can be strengthened. But only through exposure. Only through repetition. The mentally unstoppable have done the reps. They have sat in the fire enough times that they no longer fear the heat. They use it to see in the dark. Here is your challenge. This week, do one thing that makes you uncomfortable. Not dangerous. Not stupid. Just uncomfortable. A conversation you have been avoiding. A decision you have been delaying. A risk you have been rationalizing away. Do it. Then come back and tell me what happened. Let us build this together. You have now learned the 8 laws. But knowledge without application is just entertainment. And I did not create this to entertain you. I created it to change you. So let me ask, what now? Will you close this video and return to the same patterns, the same reactions, the same mental fragility? Or will you take one law, just one, and begin applying it today? Here is what the masses do. They consume content like junk food. They nod along. They feel inspired for 11 minutes. Then they return to distraction. They never change. Because they never commit. But you are still here. That suggests you are different. Or at least you want to be. The 8 laws are not philosophy. They are operating system upgrades. Law 1, never let them see you break. That is emotional encryption. Law 2, starve your need for approval. That is autonomy. Law 3, control the frame. That is reality architecture. Law 4, become comfortable in silence. That is gravitational presence. Law 5, make them need you. That is leverage engineering. Law 6, choose your battles. That is energy economics. Law 7, let them think they won. That is invisible victory. Law 8, build a mind that feeds on pressure. That is anti-fragility. Each one is simple. None are easy. Because they require you to betray your conditioning. You were taught to express every feeling. Law 1 says no. You were taught to be liked. Law 2 says irrelevant. You were taught to be honest and straightforward. Law 3 says control the narrative. You were taught that silence is awkward. Law 4 says it is power. You were taught to be humble and self-sufficient. Law 5 says become necessary. You were taught to stand your ground always. Law 6 says pick your wars. You were taught that winning means being seen winning. Law 7 says let them have the stage. You were taught to avoid stress. Law 8 says stress is the forge. Everything you were told was designed to make you manageable, polite, predictable, safe. The 8 laws are designed to make you dangerous. Not to others, unless they threaten you. But dangerous to mediocrity, to excuses, to the victim mentality that has infected an entire generation. Comment below which law you will start with. Not which one you like. Which one you will actually practice. Because intention without action is delusion. And I have no interest in delusional subscribers. I want the ones who apply. The ones who evolve. The ones who become case studies. If you are one of those, subscribe now. Not for more content, but for accountability. Because I will continue to build this archive of applied Machiavellian philosophy. And you will continue to sharpen yourself against it. We are not building a community of fans. We are building a network of practitioners. Let me tell you what happens when you apply these laws. People will notice. Not immediately. But within weeks, something shifts. You stop being reactive. You stop leaking power through emotional incontinence. Your conversations change. You speak less but with more weight. People start watching you differently. They cannot name what changed, but they feel it. You have become denser, more compressed, like a star collapsing into higher gravity. Opportunities appear, not because you chased them, but because you became worth approaching. You are no longer abundant and available. You are rare and selective, and rarity creates value. People want access. They want to understand you. They want to be close to whatever it is you have become. But you do not give access cheaply anymore. Because Law 5 taught you that necessity is leverage. Your enemies, and you will have them, become cautious. They used to provoke you easily. Now you do not react. They try harder. You remain still. They interpret your silence as strategy, which it is, and they second-guess themselves. You have become unreadable. Law 4 did that. They do not know if you are planning something or simply indifferent. Either way, they leave you alone. You have become expensive to attack. The mentally weak will call you cold, calculating, detached. Let them. Their opinion is the price of your freedom. You are no longer performing for the crowd. Law 2 handled that. You are operating from a different set of principles. Principles that prioritize outcome over optics. Results over approval. Victory over visibility. Some will resent you, especially those who knew the old you, the reactive you, the people-pleasing you. They will say you have changed, and not as a compliment. They are correct. You have changed. You have upgraded. And their resentment is simply proof that the upgrade is real. Because growth always alienates those who are still stagnant. But others, the ones who are also walking this path, they will recognize you. No words needed. Just a glance. A nod. You will find each other in rooms, in comment sections, in moments of chaos where everyone else is panicking and you are both calm. That recognition is worth more than 1,000 shallow friendships. Now let me show you what most people miss. They think Machiavellian means cruel. It does not. It means clear. Machiavelli was not advocating for evil. He was advocating for effectiveness in a world that punishes the naive. He was saying, if you want to build something, protect something, or become something, you cannot afford to be sentimental about human nature. You must see it as it is, not as you wish it were. Human beings are not inherently good or evil. They are inherently self-interested. They cooperate when it benefits them. They betray when it benefits them. They love when it serves them. They hate when it serves them. Morality is often just self-interest dressed in language. Once you accept this, you stop being shocked. You stop being hurt. You start being strategic. This does not make you a monster. It makes you a realist. And realism is the foundation of every empire, every lasting relationship, every successful negotiation, every work of art that survives its era. Because realism allows you to work with the materials you actually have, not the materials you were promised. The 8 laws are tools for realists. They assume the world is competitive, ambiguous, and indifferent to your feelings. They assume that no one is coming to save you, that your results are your responsibility, that your mind is either your weapon or your prison, and they give you a blueprint for choosing the former. So here is the moment. You have the blueprint. You have examples. You have laws. The only variable left is you. Your willingness to practice. Your ability to endure the discomfort of change. Your courage to become someone you have never been. Let me give you one final story. There was a monk who studied philosophy for 30 years. He read every text, memorized every teaching, could debate any scholar. One day, a traveler asked him, "Have you become enlightened?" The monk said, "I know everything about enlightenment." The traveler smiled and said, "That was not the question." The monk grew silent. He realized he had spent 3 decades learning and 0 days becoming. He left the monastery that night, gave away his books, and began to live the principles he had only studied. 10 years later, he returned. He did not speak, but his presence answered every question. Knowledge is not transformation. Application is. You now know the 8 laws. The question is whether you will become them. If you are ready to become them, subscribe. Not as a passive viewer, but as an active participant in your own evolution. This channel will continue to release the principles the world is too comfortable to teach. And you will continue to apply them, week by week, law by law, until the person you are now is unrecognizable to the person you will be. Comment below your commitment. Not your inspiration, your commitment. Tell me which law you start with and when. Make it public. Because public commitment creates accountability. And accountability creates results. The 8 Machiavellian laws to become mentally unstoppable are not a destination. They are an operating system. You install them. You debug them. You optimize them. And over time, they run automatically. You do not have to think about staying composed. You just are. You do not have to remind yourself to control the frame. You just do. You do not have to force yourself into silence. It becomes your default. Pressure no longer scares you. It focuses you. This is the transition from student to master. The student applies the law consciously. The master embodies it unconsciously. And that embodiment is what people feel when you walk into a room. It is not arrogance. It is not aggression. It is inevitability. You have become a force that does not ask. You simply are. Machiavelli wrote The Prince for rulers. But every human being is the ruler of at least one kingdom. The kingdom of self. Your thoughts. Your reactions. Your choices. Your time. Most people are terrible rulers. They let the kingdom fall into chaos. They let emotions riot. They let distractions invade. They let weakness govern. And then they wonder why their life feels out of control. But if you apply these laws, you become a different kind of ruler. The kind that does not need to raise their voice to be heard. The kind that does not need a title to command respect. The kind that does not need external validation to know their worth. You govern yourself so completely that the external world has no choice but to respond. People will ask you what changed. Do not tell them. Let them wonder. Let your results speak. Let your composure unsettle them. Let your silence create mystery. Because explaining your power dilutes it. The truly unstoppable do not justify. They simply demonstrate. And here is the paradox. The moment you stop needing people to understand you, they become desperate to. The moment you stop performing, they pay attention. The moment you stop chasing, they follow. This is not a trick. It is a natural law. Scarcity creates demand. And you have made yourself scarce. Not through absence, but through density. You are no longer everywhere, trying to please everyone. You are specific, intentional, rare. And rarity, in a world of noise, is the ultimate form of power. So let me leave you with this. The 8 laws are a gift. But gifts only have value if you use them. You can let this video end and forget everything. Or you can let this be the line. The before and after. The moment you decided that mentally unstoppable was not a metaphor. It was a mandate. The world is not getting easier. It is getting faster. More chaotic. More competitive. The fragile will be swept away. The reactive will be exploited. The approval seekers will be managed. But the ones who have built themselves according to these laws, they will thrive. Not because they are lucky, because they are prepared. Machiavelli wrote in a time of war, betrayal, and collapse. His lessons were born in fire. You live in a different era, but the fire is still here. It just wears different masks. Economic uncertainty, social fragmentation, information overload, psychological warfare disguised as entertainment. If you are not mentally unstoppable, you will be consumed. But if you have trained your mind to stay calm in chaos, to see clearly in confusion, to act decisively in uncertainty, then you do not survive. You dominate. So ask yourself one last time, who do you want to be? The one who knew the laws but stayed the same? Or the one who applied them and became unrecognizable? Comment your answer. Subscribe to lock in your decision. And let us see 6 months from now who actually changed. Because talk is infinite. Transformation is rare. And I am only interested in the rare ones. This is not the end of the lesson. It is the beginning of your application. Everything up until now was preparation. What comes next is proof. Prove it to yourself. Not to me. Not to the audience. To the person you see in the mirror. Show them that you are capable of more than consumption. Show them you are capable of evolution. The 8 laws are now yours. Use them quietly. Use them consistently. Use them without announcement. And one day, someone will ask you how you became so calm, so clear, so unstoppable. And you will smile. Say nothing. And let them wonder. Because the mentally unstoppable do not reveal their methods. They simply live their results. And results, my friend, are the only language power understands. Subscribe now. Not for me. For you. Because the next video will go deeper. The next law will cut sharper. And you will need to be ready. This is a journey, not a destination. And those who walk it do not walk alone. They walk among the silent, the strategic, the unstoppable. Welcome to the path. Now go apply what you have learned. And let the world feel the difference.